Imagine standing on a street corner in the South Bronx. July, 1977. The heat index is pushing 100 degrees. The air smells like melting asphalt and exhaust. And if you want to hear the future of music, you have to find a guy named DJ Kool Herc, squeeze into a packed park, and hope nobody kicks the extension cord out of the street lamp. Because in the summer of 1977, hip-hop was still a luxury. If you wanted to be a DJ, you needed serious capital. A pair of Technics turntables, a commercial mixer, and speakers powerful enough to rock a block party. In a neighborhood where youth employment was soaring, that equipment might as well have been selling on Mars. The gatekeepers weren't record labels. They were the price tags on the equipment. Until 9:34 p.m. on July 13th, 1977, a lightning strike hit a power facility north of New York City. And one by one, the lights began to die. Within hours, most of New York City was swallowed by darkness. The mainstream media focused almost entirely on chaos. Looting, a city supposedly tearing itself apart in the dark. But look past the shattered storefront glass on Fordham Road. Because while the city's power grid was collapsing, the underground cultural grid was powering up. Thousands of teenagers weren't looking for jewelry or cash. They were looking for access. They went straight for the electronic stores. Turntables, mixers, receivers, speakers. The same club quality audio equipment that had kept an entire generation on the outside looking in. And by sunrise, the barriers to entry hadn't just been lowered, they'd been shattered.
And this is my first time admitting this, telling this story, but yes, I did sneak in there, help crash the gate down, and crawl in and pull out a Clubman 2 mixer. And just say, I'm gonna be a DJ. You needed equipment. And that's all I really, wanted. I wasn't trying to loot, everything I could find.
MC Shan once famously said that hip-hop started out in the park. And in many ways it did. But after the blackout of 1977, another story emerged. One where hip-hop didn't just start in the park. It started in the dark. Today, we're looking at how one night of total darkness accidentally democratized music technology and helped launch a global cultural revolution. Welcome back to the Underground Syllabus. By 1975, the Big Apple was starting to rot. The manufacturing sector that had helped build New York City, defined its hard-nosed identity, and provided stable middle-class jobs for generations, was collapsing. The wealthiest and whitest New Yorkers couldn't get out of the city fast enough, leaving behind empty buildings, shrinking neighborhoods, and a massive hole in the city's tax base. At the exact moment revenue was collapsing, the cost of keeping the city running was exploding. Crime was rising. Infrastructure was decaying. Entire neighborhoods in the Bronx looked like war zones. And city officials, desperate to hold everything together, began borrowing enormous amounts of money just to keep the lights on. This wasn't simply a story about bad leadership or irresponsible budgeting. It was a perfect storm. A city under economic pressure, racial tension, political exhaustion, and institutional decay. A city under enormous pressure, waiting for something to give. One of the most drastic consequences of New York City's financial crisis was what got cut first. Music. Arts. The same city that had once produced legends like Duke Ellington, George Gershwin, and Fats Waller decided that teaching kids creativity had become a luxury it could no longer afford. School music programs disappeared. Arts funding dried up. And in neighborhoods already struggling with poverty, crime, and abandonment, thousands of young people suddenly found themselves with fewer and fewer constructive outlets. But creativity doesn't just disappear because budget spreadsheets say it should. It adapts. So kids took their music out of the classrooms and into the streets, into parks, community centers, basketball courts, block parties, anywhere that they could plug in a speaker, run an extension cord, and be heard. This was the New York that produced songs like The Message. Not the polished Manhattan of tourist postcards. Not the glamorous disco fantasy of Studio 54. This was the other New York. The New York of burned out apartment buildings, graffiti-covered subway cars, broken elevators, sirens at 3 a.m., and summer heat trapped between blocks of concrete and brick. A city where entire neighborhoods felt abandoned in time. And when Millie Mel growled,
"Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head."
it didn't sound like poetry. It sounded like reportage. Like a dispatch from the collapsing edge of urban America. Because by the mid-70s, a lot of New Yorkers felt like they were hanging on by their fingertips. Factories disappeared. Schools lost funding. Landlords abandoned buildings. Drugs and violence surged into neighborhoods already struggling to survive. The city government looked overwhelmed. The police were distrusted. The future felt uncertain. And for a generation of young people growing up in the Bronx, there was a constant sense that the system surrounding them was breaking apart faster than anyone could repair it. But pressure does strange things to human creativity. Sometimes it crushes people. And sometimes it forces them to invent something entirely new. To continue this story, we need to take a southern detour, about 1,500 miles south of the Bronx, to the island of Jamaica. Back in the 40s and 50s, a powerful new culture had emerged around what Jamaicans called sound systems. At the time, many working class families couldn't afford radios or record players of their own. So entrepreneurs like Tom the Great Sebastian and Duke Reed built massive mobile speaker systems designed to bring music directly into the streets. Entire neighborhoods would gather around towering stacks of speakers, transforming ordinary street corners into open-air dance parties. And often, the music wasn't the only performance. DJs and MCs would grab microphones to toast, boast, mock rivals, and hype the crowd rhythmically over the records. Long before hip-hop had a name, much of this blueprint was already being written in Jamaica. And one of the young boys observing that culture was a Kingston teenager named Clive Campbell. Years later, after immigrating to the Bronx, the world would know him by another name, DJ Kool Herc. Herc quickly noticed something interesting. At parties, people reacted differently to certain parts of the records. Not the verses, not the choruses, the break. That short percussion-heavy section where the singer stopped, the melody faded, and all that remained was the rhythm. The part that the dancers waited for. The problem was that most breaks only lasted for a few seconds, just long enough to build momentum, before the song slipped back into its regular structure. But Clive Campbell had grown up around Jamaican sound system culture. Sound system DJs weren't passive. They manipulated energy, controlled crowds, and extended excitement. So Herc ended up experimenting.
I had to come up with bongo rock. Bongo rock was still no vocals in it, and I would go into Baby Huey, the Mexican.
Using two turntables and two copies of the same record, he began switching them back and forth at just the right moment, extending the break over and over again. A few seconds became 30. 30 became a minute. A minute became an entirely new kind of music. Herc called this technique the merry-go-round. He'd move seamlessly between the break sections of different records, keeping dancers locked into pure rhythm for impossibly long stretches of time. James Brown, Jimmy Castor, the Incredible Bongo Band, one break flowing into the other like a continuous pulse. And suddenly, the DJ was no longer just someone playing records. The DJ became a musician, a conductor, someone building entirely new music from existing records in real time. The dancers reacted immediately. Kids started developing entirely new styles of movement built around the extended breaks. Spinning, dropping to the ground, freezing mid-motion. The best dancers became known as B-boys and B-girls, short for break boys and break girls. And around the edges of these park jams, another element started forming. Kids grabbed microphones, hyped the crowd, boasted, rhymed, cracked jokes, tested language against rhythm. At first, they weren't even the main attraction. The DJ was. But slowly, the voice on the microphone began evolving into something else entirely. The early foundations of rap music. And all of it. The turntables, the speakers, the records, the extension cords running into apartment buildings. Still dependent on access to equipment most kids in the Bronx simply couldn't afford. Until the lights went out. Kool Herc, if you're still here, thanks. I genuinely enjoy telling these stories, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing them. Because this week's story doesn't really end here. Next week, we'll continue exploring the evolution of hip-hop. From park jams and block parties, to radio, MTV, and the birth of the global rap phenomenon. And the week after that, we'll look at how hip-hop grew from local New York subculture into one of the most influential cultural movements on earth. I hope you'll join me back here for it. Until then, my name's David, and this is the Underground Syllabus.